pleasant viewing to you viewers. Welcome to the review, where we take time to reflect and analyze some of the issues that have made headlines in the past week. And today we are looking at the increasing media space in Zimbabwe with the licensing of 8 more community radio stations. Today we are joined in the studio by the board chairperson of the Zimbabwe Association of Community Radio Stations, better known as ZACRAS. Madam Kapia, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And also joining us is the programs manager from the Zimbabwe Media Alliance, Mr. Nigel. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, Madam, I'll start with you. Can you tell us more what community radio stations are?
Okay, community radio stations are those radio stations that are part of the three-tier broadcasting system, where we have the public, we have the commercial, and we have the community. And the community then looking at, divorcing itself from the other mandates that the commercial and the public has by, targeting community needs, community priorities, community aspirations, community visions, and especially for development, because community radios are there for community development. That is the major difference. And also that they are directed by the community. The presenters or the producers or the people that work in those stations are from the community. The editorial policies are not dictated by anybody from outside. Everything that happens in a community radio station is it comes from the community and targets the community.
Right. Mr. Nigel, why are community radio stations important? She actually highlighted an issue where the community is able to control and influence what is broadcasted. What, in your own opinion, is the role?
Well, naturally, in any setup, if you've got broadcasting that is national, if you have broadcasting that is perhaps provincial and so forth, or media, as it were, it becomes very difficult to cover the day-to-day intricacies of what will be happening, as communities have unique and different needs, unique and different ways of even expressing themselves, be it culturally, be it in terms of language, be it in terms of mandate, even if you put it in other words. So essentially, community radios do target a certain particular, whether geographic, whether interests, groups, or whatever case may be, so that what is missed by the big story, by the national story, can be catered for by the community platform. And in any case, it is always nice that when one looks at any picture, if you hear someone say a picture is nice, normally it is when they would have come out nice. And community radios give that particular voice to individuals to be broadcast, to share their views, and to have a voice as well as access to information that concerns them.
Right. Madam Kapia, you work with radio community stations, ZACRAS, on a daily basis. And should we be happy with government efforts in, continue licensing more radio stations? And what does this mean for the media diversity as well?
We should be happy. As Zimbabwe, we should actually pat ourselves on the back to say that at least we are now there with other players, with other countries in the region, because we're lagging behind. It was Zimbabwe and Swaziland that did not have community radio stations in the region, and it was beginning to become embarrassing. Just thinking why will the country as progressive as Zimbabwe not have something as a tool for development like community radio stations. So what has happened now has really made us so happy, and it's a huge milestone for us as ZACRAS, because we've been advocating and lobbying for the licensing of community radios for the past 2 decades.
Right. And what else now do you expect from the government that now they've licensed the radio community radio stations through the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe? What else are you expecting from the government of Zimbabwe?
We are expecting, because as you have said, they've licensed 8 more on top of the 6 that had been licensed in December last year, making them 14. But we have so many communities in Zimbabwe, and we are hoping that, the call for applications will be extended to several more communities, so that each and every community that spans 40 to 80 kilometer radius has a medium of communication in the form of a community radio station. But we are also hoping that government will step in terms of support to these community radio stations, and by way maybe of availing a grant that makes sure that these stations are capacitated in terms maybe of equipment, in terms of whatever needs that they have. And as ZACRAS, we are there to partner with government to make sure that that happens.
Right, Mr. Nigel. ZACRAS is talking of a proposal of a grant. As the Zimbabwe Media Alliance, what is your take and what are you looking from the government?
There is certainly obvious an argument around the support mechanism for these community radio stations, because naturally we do know they do not really rely on a profit-making enterprise, as it were. So there is obviously need that the community itself is supported to be able to sustain that particular operations. And indeed, public funds would naturally be one of the mechanisms to support. But there's also a critical expectation around, number one, government ensuring that the operations of these community radios remain editorially independent to determine its content structure. They still need for us to review the legal framework that supports community radios. In particular, when you look at the Broadcasting Services Act, there are areas in particular around the regulations that support the licensing of these community radio stations, the licensing framework, the composition and independence of the Broadcasting Authority, for example. All those remain some critical issues where we can still improve, but it's positive that, yes, we've got these new players, we've got initiatives that have been established before the conception of licensing, as it were, the call for licenses and so forth. So it is still positive, but broadly we now not need to wait for the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe to call for licensing. It should just be an ongoing process, and part of it and how we can remedy that is through the legal reforms of the Broadcasting Services Act.
Right, you spoke highly of the Broadcasting Services Act, you spoke of the role of the government. What in your view also should be the role of the private sector, the businesses in those communities to continue supporting these community radio stations?
They are the owners of these community radio initiatives. The idea, which is why in terms of how community radios are established, how community radios are composed, certainly those various groups, whether social, that is your burial societies, your churches, your any other form of organized groupings within any particular society, including business and so forth, as long as it is homegrown, as long as it reflects the entireship of the people that make up the community, they should be in the lead and take a leading role. I think from some of the regulations, the positive aspects of them made it really clear that you need to demonstrate that you've got, if it is a community in the rural areas, it needs to obviously have your chiefs, your sabukus, your village heads, and so forth, to demonstrate that every person within that particular community feels they have a stake in it. So what better way would it be for businesses in such areas to support something that they own and something that they feel would be a pedestal for their businesses to grow and even grow beyond that particular community.
Right. Pelagia, you obviously working with these community radio stations. Is speaking of the involvement of the local community in all different areas. What is your comment on that, considering that the community owns the radio station itself?
That's the way it should be, because all the different people in the community should be involved in the community decision, because they have to feel that they own it, and that's how they will support it. If people see value in something, they will support it. And because the sustainability of community radio stations really hinges upon the support from the communities more than anything else, the greater percentage of even the financial support should come from the communities. And you know that the one who pays is the one who controls. So if the people in the communities become the people that are actually paying to make sure that the radio station is running, they're paying more, and they it means that the community radio stations would really remain independent. But there's also another factor that we think that legislation would actually take care of, in terms of saying, for example, if somebody is their home area is Chipinge, for example, but they are now based in the United Kingdom, are they not still a community member, and they can actually support and send money to make sure that the community radio is continuing and is flowing? So it's something that really it needs to be catered for in the Broadcasting Services Act, to make sure that the definition of foreign funding is really broken down, to say, if you are saying foreign funding, who is foreign? Am I foreign because I'm just now working somewhere else, but my hometown is that area where the community radio station is?
Right. I think you bring in a very interesting subject of foreign funding, and we know that there might be some organizations who might be hiding under the guise of assisting and helping community radio stations with different agendas. What is your advice, and how are you guiding radio community stations to be able to then disseminate, to know the correct channels to take if they receive or get offers of foreign funding?
As Zacharias, we've really been doing that sort of work in terms of making sure that communities really know, and they are capacitated to actually discern, to say, this is in good faith and this is in bad faith. And also the fact that, Nigel talked about, the composition of maybe, for example, the governing bodies of those community radios, to say they are represented at every level, from the chiefs to the business people to the churches to everybody who is in the community. I don't think that all those people and what they represent would be easily fooled by somebody who's coming in with a different agenda than that of just supporting and making sure that the community needs are taken care of.
Right. Nigel, as the programs manager, you obviously deal with issues of programming. Are these community radio stations going to be broadcasting or discussing about politics, and what exactly is going to be the programming?
Well, in any particular setup, the community radios will essentially be reflecting the life and well-being of that particular community. And life revolves around economic activity, revolves around social activity, and also life does include politics. So the idea of having a community radio is not necessarily about governance and political affairs of a community, but in any measure they would naturally be, say there's a local government election or there's a political event that would have taken place within that community, or there are news and information that pertains to the political well-being of that particular community. Naturally, the dominant narrative of that particular period would include politics. But the essence of a community is obviously far-reaching and goes beyond the political aspects, but also include the social, the cultural, the art side, the economic life of that particular community, and what would be obtaining, whether you look at it from a perspective of women, youths, men, whether you even look at something as basic as the deaths, pandemics, all forms of news in its broad sense and news value in its broad sense would certainly be what would be the editorial thrust of that particular community. So yes, politics is part of community life, and I would imagine at any one point or the other would also be part of the programming and the news aspect of that particular community.
Now, as the Zimbabwe Media Alliance, what steps are you taking, or what initiatives are you taking to continue to engage these new community radio stations in terms of educating them, and also assisting them in terms of how their programming should actually be?
Yes, they are support mechanisms. Obviously, the one being through the Association of Community Radios, which is why it will remain critical, because beyond just being an advocacy group for calling for the licensing, which is one critical score, congratulations, Chairperson, that they've already made in ensuring that the community radio initiatives that they came up or that they supported are already organized and are within a structure which proffers various means of support. And one of those support mechanisms includes training to use equipment, training to broadcast, training even journalism itself, training how they can sustain the model, lessons sharing, and so forth, and being part of the broader and wider community of those that are in community broadcasting. So yes, through ZACRAS and through other partners, including the United Nations Education and Scientific Cultural Organization, UNESCO, that already is committed to support some of the required equipment, and in partnership with government, in partnership with other supporters of media freedom and supporters of media development, have been getting in to capacitate and to equip. In fact, the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe itself has also been a tool that has gone to carry out site visits and see how these communities can be better organized. So as Media Alliance of Zimbabwe, as defenders of free expression and so forth, we also have been part of that broader support mechanism to ensure that once these community radios begin to broadcast, they can be futuristic and look beyond the now.
Right. Madam, as ZACRAS, the new players have been licensed, and they are ready to roll. What is your role as ZACRAS as soon as these community radio stations are licensed up to the time they go on air, and their sustainability? Apart from the mobilization of the community members to make sure that they participate, what else is ZACRAS doing?
Okay, just like what Nigel has said, that as ZACRAS, we are not just advocating and lobbying, but we are also equipping them with skills, different skills that are needed in terms of radio broadcast, skills with, citizen journalism, skills to actually be presenters like yourself, skills to be producers, skills to actually to manage resources, skills to do lots of things that we think that are important in terms of making sure that the community radio stations would be really holistic, but also that we are not ending there, because these are just a few community radio initiatives that have been licensed. We are continuing to say that another call has to be made, so that all the other communities that feel like they want to apply, they want to have a community radio station, should be able to do so. In fact, one of the things that we have been talking about is that why should we even have a law that says we have to wait for a call as a community for us to apply for a license? If we are ready and we feel that we have issues to deal with and we want a community radio license, why should we not just apply anytime that we feel like we need to apply and we need the license? Because this idea of waiting for a call, it might never come. In fact, do you know that it had never been made since the enactment of the Broadcasting Services Act in 2001? It had never been made, and it was only made in 2020. So really, it's something that is, in fact, 2019. So it's something that we really feel that is quite restrictive in terms of making sure that communities really exercise their right to freedom of expression and access to information.
And Nigel, she's bringing in an issue of the distribution of the location of some of these community radio stations, and you would look at the distribution that we have radio stations in some regions like Chipinge have more stations than the other. What, in your opinion, is the initiative going forward, and what's your take on that?
Well, the official pronouncement by the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe was that the priorities at this particular stage were those communities that are not adequately serviced by the existing broadcasting stations, whether you look at it from the national broadcaster, and the other licensed commercial players. So the argument was naturally, let's start with those that they felt would need broadcasting services, would need at least access to media. But the broader frame is that this is just a start. And we sincerely hope that the step in the right direction is sustained. And there is, in our view and our submission, particularly as we advocate for the review of the Broadcasting Services Act, whose amendment bill has been a long time coming, and which we continue to engage with the government and parliamentary stakeholders, that it be reviewed such that any particular organized community that would want, because Zimbabweans should be spoiled for choice. You should be able to access a platform that you'd want, and in particular, with particular, focus on community in this particular case, you'd also want to access news and information of what is obtaining within your own home, within your own particular area. So yes, the ones that were licensed for now were those that were not necessarily adequately serviced, but we do hope that beyond just these ones, there could be a real plurality and diversity in our media services.
Thank you, Nigel. Madam, in less than a minute, can you just tell us your parting shots as ZACRAS and your hope in the future for the community radio stations?
Okay, as ZACRAS, we are hoping that the amendment of the Broadcasting Services Act would be finalized, so that it takes care of issues that have to do with the idea of foreign funding, the idea of advertising, and the idea of how community radios can be sustained. And also, we are hoping that these community radio stations that have been licensed and those that would be licensed in future would really remain independent in the truest sense, and they serve the needs, priorities, aspirations of the communities that they are, based in.
Right, there you have it, viewers. That was the review, the program that we had. We had 2 special guests in the studio. And if a community radio station is not yet in your area, please look out for it. It's coming soon, as ZACRAS and Zimbabwe Media Alliance have actually continued to hammer that they are going to make sure that they will continue to support the cause. My name is Abio Mawere from the crew behind the scenes. Stay tuned for more programming on ZBC TV.